It has been 3 years since one of my most memorable rant videos on this channel, just over 3 years actually. It's the one where I spoke about PvP, but also about Well of Radiance and how the auto-reloading meta was destroying any and all semblance of difficulty in endgame content. Shortly after that video was made, Bungie announced sweeping nerfs to such things, in addition to buff and debuff stacking, getting a significant rework as well. It appears that they also had enough, or if you're a jaded I hate streamers kind of person and you're just hate watching me right now, you may think that it was all my fault. If so, I'll take credit for that one in particular. Also, please find a hobby. If you haven't been following the recent happenings on Twitter, good. Twitter sucks. But if you have, you may know that 3-time world first raid champion Salta Greppo has suggested that Divinity is perhaps in need of a nerf, in addition to some other things mentioned before that revolve around making the game a bit harder. I will admit, seeing someone else post stuff like this on Twitter has been entertaining, as we'll discuss. Now, longtime fans of the channel know that I am no stranger to controversial takes, literally dating back to 2014 with my video on doorways in Destiny and how I didn't think you should have been able to cheese the summoning pits Nightfall. I have been around the block early in my career, and as recently as last year with my takes on Master VOG, I guess. But do I push things as much nowadays? No, I do not. But I know the vitriol that can come with it, especially on Twitter. That part of my life is over. I do not care anymore to try to make points that I think are correct if they do not align with the casual community because of the vitriol and hatred that will come with it. Twitter, Reddit, you name it. Twitter and Reddit are some of the most anti-content creator places that I have seen, and I don't like to tread in those areas. Which is why it's been fun seeing someone else posting about making the game harder and saying all the things I imagine other people have been wanting to say, seeing that quite literally nothing has changed in the past 8 years. Happy birthday to Destiny, by the way. The amount of hatred and vitriol coming from the PvE crowd disappoints me, but doesn't necessarily surprise me, as the casual crowd is quite noticeable for their defiance against the hardcore community for literally anything that would cause something to make the game harder in any way. That's not to say the casual crowd is immune to being crapped on by elitist know-what-to-do 50-plus clears only LFG gamers, because they've certainly dealt with plenty of their own issues. You got the one crowd that wants the game to be easy, you got the crowd that wants the game to be hard. The two are never going to blend. Some more difficulty options would be nice, but that's probably another video. But let's get to the main point. Divinity has been a staple in every raid group since it came into the game during Shadowkeep back in 2019. We're coming up on 3 years straight of Divinity dominance. It is a weapon that Bungie cannot undo. This was a very deliberate decision to make, to include this weapon in the game, and Bungie had to have known the potential ripple effects it would have caused. I would almost say it's a bad idea to raid without one at this point, as Bungie likely designs things with Divinity in mind, much like they did in 2018 with Well of Radiance and the Reckoning activity. For those not up to date, Reckoning was an activity in Season 6 where Bungie had to design an encounter in a way that the main way you would be killed is by getting booped off of a bridge. Well of Radiance was so strong back then that the only way to kill you was instant death, sort of like what we're seeing right now. The same went for Season 7's activity, the Menagerie, on its heroic difficulty. Well of Radiance continues to be a very valuable tool, to the point where my World First team usually ends up stacking 2 or 3 at the least, and the only major nerf that I can think of is that you no longer get an overshield from it, and Phoenix Protocol was nerfed to refund only 50% energy. Oh, hey, that's me. Anyway, history appears to be repeating itself with Divinity, in addition to other massive buffs that we have received as a part of the Subclass 3.0 changes. It's not that Divinity hasn't been an issue this entire time, it's just the first time in a while that someone has actually chosen to speak about it who has a big platform. So why have I not brought it up? Why didn't anyone bring it up? Why did it take until Salta Greppo made a Twitter post about it for all of this conversation to start? If it's been a problem for 3 years, why are we starting now? Well, we go back to an earlier paragraph. Vitriol, hatred, arguments. The fact of the matter is that wanting Divinity to be nerfed is the equivalent of rich people problems. And it coming from Salta Greppo himself, the current reigning 3-time back-to-back-to-back raid champion, is the equivalent of Jeff Bezos complaining about only being able to buy 6 yachts instead of 7. You don't care about rich people problems. That's their problem. Top-end raiders wanting Divinity nerfed, no matter the justification, good, bad, right, wrong, smart, stupid, is rich people problems. You don't care about rich people problems. If you're asking me specifically why I never made a video, it's the same reason I hesitate to mention any other things that make the game too easy or that are going to have some sort of very vitriolic opinions behind it. I'm tired. I don't want to deal with the repercussion of saying these things anymore because I know what happens when I do regardless of my reasoning, and I just don't want to deal. 2022 Datto is not the unlimited time, unlimited energy, filled with self-loathing, lonely 2016 Datto. 2016 Datto lived in a shed in Los Angeles with no friends and had way too much time on his hands to argue with people. 2022 Datto has a totally kick-ass awesome wife who edits his scripts, a dog, chores, and other hobbies, and has changed his perspective on many things. I am not trying to have long, drawn-out arguments on the internet that will eventually end with no opinions changing on either side, but will end in Twitter and Reddit spewing a bunch of garbage at me. It angers me when I see it happening to me or others. I don't want to be angry. Every day, I must suppress the urge to absolutely blow up at morons on Twitter to try to set a good example for others in how to conduct themselves maturely. And let me tell you, some of you make it very difficult. I still have some things slip through just to open the valve a little bit and let some steam out. This is the same stuff that goes through every other content creator's mind. Why didn't this person? Why didn't that person? It's all the same. No one wants to deal with the hate that would come with such an opinion, period. No one wants to hear literal top 5 raiders. Salt and his team are quite literally the top team in the world. No one wants to hear these level of people say that Divinity makes the game too easy. And that's partly because a lot of the casual audience cannot see the forest for the trees. The general you, I'm going to be saying that a decent amount, the general you, the general casual player base, I would say the general player base as a whole, cannot see the forest for the trees. This is only part of the problem. We'll talk about the other part next, but you cannot see the forest for the trees. If you're a more casual player, maybe you have lesser thumb skill, you don't get to raid very often, maybe you're a dad that has 7 kids with soccer practice all at different times of day, so you only get 14 minutes to play per week. Whatever you are, you probably don't want Divinity to get nerfed in any way because Divinity makes the game easier for you to play and participate in, which is very noble. The Destiny community, though, has historically been very I need to get better at the game to get other stuff, and that's because Bungie coddles people and because player responsibility is becoming a thing of the past. Bungie continuously makes us stronger and stronger and makes the game easier and easier with each update. There has never been a reason to have to get better at the game because the game rarely provides reasons, and when they do, they're adept weapons. They're artifice armor. They're enhanced weapon perks. They are things that people can ultimately live without or completely ignore because they make no difference, and because the incentives that were good, things like Not Forgotten, Mountaintop, Recluse, were too strong and tipped the scales too heavily, an unfortunate side effect of PvE and PvP all using the same sandbox, and unfortunately a side effect of power creep. The same goes for any recent changes. Solar 3.0, Resilience giving you 40% damage resistance. Any advocating for the nerf of something that makes the game easier is 100% of the time met with absolute negativity and hatred and vitriol, because a lot of people do not want to be challenged more than they already are for whatever reason.
Don't use it then. Don't tell us how to play. Go outside, bro. Games are supposed to be about relaxing and fun.
The same lines every time.
Bosses would be impossible without divinity. They would have too much health.
Says the person who cannot see the forest for the trees. This is not a matter of just,
don't use it then, you dumb elitist streamer. Leave us alone.
A lovely take I saw recently was,
I bet when you make all your guides, you're going to tell us to use divinity, huh?
Yeah, I am. Imagine I made a guide and didn't recommend that you use one of the best weapons the franchise has ever seen. That would be a very suboptimal guide.
Well, Datto, why don't you just not use div then?
Well, on day one rating, that's a stupid idea, because I believe that the raids are balanced around the fact that divinity exists and you're going to be using it. Everyone else is going to be using it to get every advantage possible. Outside of day one is where I can understand some of that argument a bit more, though. I personally feel that I shouldn't need to police myself all the time in this game in order to be challenged. I shouldn't need to hold myself back just to feel something. That's the job of the game designers. The rewards also don't really line up with that either. As for what I think about divinity, here's what I'm going to say. To me, all right, now that most people have left the video, this is what I think about divinity. You hear how excited I am to talk about this? Please note that I don't think there's much danger of divinity getting nerfed, regardless of any feedback. And even if it does, it's still going to be well within the realm of usable and good. Bungie would never nerf this gun to the point where it's unusable. There is nothing else that can debuff a boss for the entire duration of a fight. To me, the major problem is that it is both the easiest and the best thing, much like Well of Radiance, but even that still survives to this day. And when something is the easiest and the best, it gets used everywhere. It becomes mandatory in all aspects of the game, which means Bungie now needs to design encounters around the fact that we have access to a thing that makes having to hit crits not important, and it provides a massive damage increase, meaning Bungie needs to inflate health pools to compensate. Look at a boss like Taniks in Deepstone. Imagine having to try to hit his bobbing head on every single shot. It's way harder. Divinity just gives you a bubble and you don't even need to tilt your head. This is where people cannot see the big picture. People only see, nerfing divinity, therefore harder to do damage, therefore bosses are unkillable because we can't deal enough damage, without realizing that Bungie now has the ability to reduce health pools instead of increasing all of them by 30 to 40% to compensate for divinity. Not only that, but it would allow Bungie to open new avenues for debuffing targets that have higher risk but higher reward. It would also allow more breathing room for a lot of teams, knowing that most people are not going to be hitting every single shot as a crit. Bungie can't balance the game around the fact that not everyone's hitting crits all the time if there's a giant blue ball that allows you to crit all the time. This, in turn, could make something like the Day 1 experience potentially less punishing, like War Priest. Bungie likely balanced this fight in a way, thanks in part to Divinity, and the ability to hit every single crit, every single time, proccing every single fourth time's a charm proc, triple tap, full bonus damage, bait and switch, all the time, you get it. Bungie needs to push people to the absolute edge because that's where we are right now, and the only way to show a difference in skill is how prepared your team is to handle it. Another thing is that Divinity requires no sacrifices to be made. Not only does it reduce the skill needed to hit crits by providing a giant crit spot, it also provides one of the largest damage debuffs in the entire game. It should do one or the other, not both. But Datto, you say, you have to sacrifice one person's damage completely. Surely that is a trade-off. Well, if it were that significant of a trade-off, we wouldn't be seeing Divinity's level of use. Clearly the trade-off is not enough. In fact, I would even argue that it's actually a benefit to a lot of teams, because out of every raid team that has ever been, there is objectively someone who is the worst on that team. Giving them the job of shooting Divinity at the boss, meaning they're providing more of a benefit versus them just trying to hit crits and missing their shots, doing a lot less damage. And no, I am not saying if you are the div user in your team that you are bad, but I am saying that it is a way for low skill players to still be able to contribute a very large amount to their team, which is admirable. And for the crowd that's going to mention physical accessibility, people who have some sort of physical condition that doesn't allow them to participate, as well as other people who don't have a condition, whatever that condition might be, yes, Divinity is very good for them. Obviously, none of this is targeted at people with physical conditions that affect their ability to play the game. I would hope that would be implied because I'm not a completely horrible person, but there you go. However, I don't think that makes Divinity immune to criticism. In an ideal world, Divinity would be one of many options. In an ideal world, Divinity should not be as good as something more skillful, like rotating debuffs on a boss, because Divinity is a low skill job, maybe outside of tapping the trigger to conserve ammo. And I can say that because I'm usually the person being Divinity, because no one else wants to do Divinity, and I'd rather not sit there and argue who's going to be Divinity. It's not hard to use Divinity. In an ideal world, there will be roles dedicated to debuffing boss targets consistently enough to provide a higher benefit than Divinity, with the risk of knowing that you could miss and that you don't have a crit bubble to rely on. Not only is Divinity capable of giving you a giant crit spot and the best damage debuff, it can do it for a near infinite amount of time. We are so used to a near permanent state of debuff on a boss target that it even skews my perception of how long a debuff on a boss should even last. Tethers, weakness grenades, all of these last for seconds, not entire fights. There are not many damage phases in the game that will completely deplete all of your Divinity ammo without giving you the opportunity to go get more ammo. Maybe Golgoroth. There's nothing else like it in the game. I would much rather live in a world where we went back to something like Valkor from Spire of Stars, where I had to perfectly time my melting point on the boss to give my team a damage debuff, or I had to waste time and risk my life with a tractor cannon running into melee range, putting myself at risk so that the team could get a boost. Sacrifices, trade-offs, skillful decision-making and play. All of these things pale in comparison to Divinity. I'm not saying that Divinity should just cease to exist as a result of all my desires, because it should stay around. But I would like to see more skillful displays be rewarded more than just holding a button at a target. It's been 3 years, and I don't think Divinity has really ever been addressed. Like, at all. We are absolutely at another power apex in Destiny right now, and I do see a world where Bungie makes some tuning adjustments to dial things back in, although it will be considerably tougher than in the past, which is why I also see them letting players just run wild for the rest of this saga, and then just doing a big reset or a big wave of changes after this era ends and a new one begins. As to what'll end up happening, obviously, as I usually say, not really sure. Divinity keeps things accessible for low-skill players, and ultimately getting more people into raids is a good idea, as it is the best content the game has to offer. I think having it not be the dominant option would be nice to introduce some skill back into the game, but that is a massive undertaking when we compare Divinity to the power of a Shadow Shot debuff. And let's face it, what's the hardcore crowd really gonna do if Bungie keeps the status quo? Say it with me now. Nothing. Exactly. What are we going to do? Leave? There's nothing else like this game, damn it. And to Salted Greppo, thanks for being the punching bag on this one. Yeah, it's unfortunate for people at both ends of the skill bracket that every take or every opinion must be met with immediate hostility instead of trying to have a conversation about things, as I try to do on this channel every so often. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.